Hey Neil, how are you?
I'm good. Morning.
Good evening here in Miami and Lima. I'm here with Arturo, my co-founder. Welcome to Serguro Coffee Chats. It is a pleasure to have you here today. Um, I've been following Neil over the past couple of years as he's been a very strong advocate of storytelling. A brief overview of him, he grew up in Louisiana. Then he spent his childhood shooting guns and fishing. Then he moved to start studying a lot of degrees, and then he did postgraduate work in psychology and neuroscience. And then he actually went all the way to Singapore to teach at INSEAD, studying with statistics, and then he pivoted to storytelling, which is kind of how I found him. So a tenured professor, he's now moving back to America, to the US, to start up his story school. So it will be a great idea for us to invite him today to share his expertise, his stories, and how he's going to make that move in the future. So without further ado, I'll let Neil share with us a little bit about what he's looking to do with Story School. So Neil, take it from there.
Thank you very much. My thesis, and I think it's pretty well validated by the data, is that many, perhaps most professionals, guys about your age, I don't know how old you are exactly, but
46.
Folks about it, 46, definitely, that's the sweet spot. Arturo?
44, yeah.
Okay, both of you are in a spot that conventionally has been called midlife crisis territory. And my thesis is that a lot of professionals are living in a kind of quiet or perhaps not so quiet desperation. They went to school, they got a job, they got another job, they got another job, they got a mortgage, they got kids, they got a divorce, maybe they didn't get a divorce. And they look ahead out for the next 20 years, and sometimes it's not so clear what they want those 20 years to look like. Sometimes when they iterate living the way they're living right now for the next 20 years, it's not incredibly inspiring for them. It's challenging. And a lot of folks find themselves at 44, 46, maybe 34, maybe 56, and they don't quite know exactly how they ended up where they are. How the heck did I end up here? What led to this?
Right.
And what a lot of folks don't know is that how they ended up where they are right now is a function in part, not entirely, but in part of the stories that they've been telling themselves. And perhaps some stories that they haven't really come to grips with have been influencing where they're going. They've been chasing money, recognition, running from insecurities. Some guy, he wasn't good at playing football when he was in high school, and he thought he would get a job at McKinsey, and then his dad would respect him, and he would compensate for the fact that he wasn't good at football when he was a kid, if only he could get a prestigious CV. And then he thinks, if I make partner, then I'll impress my colleagues. And a lot of folks are running from insecurities, from stuff they haven't dealt with. And I don't think they need a psychologist. I think what a lot of people just need is just to articulate clearly, explicitly, socially, that is with other people, what their stories are. This is who I am. This is where I came from. This is what's been pushing me, driving me. And often a lot of that stuff, it's not stuff that most people will put on their LinkedIn profile, because there you're supposed to be Superman. But what's really driving people is not the Superman BS. It's the real stuff from their lives. And that stuff is captured, it's embedded in, it's consolidated in the stories that they've been telling themselves about themselves. And maybe they've never, again, told those stories to other people. So what the Story School is it's a place for people to come and first, because you can't really do this well unless you know how to do this first thing, first just actually know how to tell a story. Because you can't tell a compelling story, a clear story about your own life unless you know just some very fundamental principles of story. Otherwise, people will just ramble incoherently. They'll do what I call drunk driving. And no one wants to listen to that. So the first thing people need to do is learn how to tell a story. Now, once you understand storytelling 101, it's very basics, then, okay, can I use this structure, this template, this mechanism, storytelling, now to articulate all this stuff that I've been thinking about? And then once folks know how to do it, then the force comes from the social engagement community. Okay, now let me share my story with other folks in the community who are sharing their stories with me. And we're all effectively trying to achieve the same thing: liberation from our past, growth, see the potential of our future. So the story school is going to be a place where people learn how to tell stories, then are empowered to share stories. And again, storytelling is a social activity. It's not something you can do by yourself. You do it with other people. They nod, they tell you they're in the same boat, they've struggled with the same things, and it will create bonds, it will create meaningful relationships, and it will do a lot of the stuff that people need, but they don't have an outlet for right now. A lot of people spend time on LinkedIn, for instance, but there you have to go and you have to have this Superman facade, and it's BS. It has a function, it has a place, I get it, but people have an itch that they can't scratch, and that itch is just, how can I just actually be honest about what I've experienced and what I'm thinking and what it is that I want? And there's no forum for that, as far as I can tell. And so the story school is going to be a place for that. People to discover themselves, to meet one another, to actually create bonds with other folks through legitimate storytelling, not rambling, not therapy, not blah, 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 but clearly articulating, I did this, which caused that, and map out that whole causal chain as they understand their lives and hear other folks. That's the plan.
Neil, how is the interaction going to happen in story school? Did you have any thought about, like, physical, or is it going to be digital?
Digital, because what you don't want to just, if you live in Louisville, Kentucky, you don't want to just talk to other guys in Louisville, Kentucky. What's nice is to talk to people who really feel compelled to engage in this activity. And that guy might be in Lima, he might be in Paris, he might be in Kinshasa, who knows? And so the nice thing about Zoom, about this world we're in right now, is you get a chance to meet a whole bunch of other human beings who've been dealing with going through the same stuff that you have. And you'll find out that actually they're all over the world. So you're part of the human race, right? Human beings are dealing with this stuff. So no physical location, everything takes place right here. I've done a lot on Zoom. As far as I can tell, it works just as well. It's just as effective as meeting to do this. And it's easy for people to schedule, and it has, all these other additional properties that make it nice, but all online.
Thanks a lot. No, that's a great intro, Neil, about story school. So my next question would be, what's the next important milestone for you in this process?
So background, right now I still have a job. So I have a job at INSEAD, you mentioned that, but
right.
I'm leaving that job to do the story school.
Right.
And in a sense, it kind of competes with INSEAD. And by my contract, I can't just launch this thing and start running big courses. So the next big thing is I finish my job in August. We'll be in the US. And then I will start inviting people to participate in it. Right now, I'm developing the infrastructure, the curriculum. But the next big milestone is the launch, just making it where people can actually come. I've been doing this in a small scale, experimentally. I've been doing it a long time in the classroom at INSEAD with people, but doing it online, this digital format, the launch will take place after I leave INSEAD. Between now and then, it's growing a mailing list, finding ways to access people who are interested, raising awareness. And that's very tactical, but the next big milestone is launching it.
Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what strategies, now that you were talking about launch, what strategies have you been developing to essentially build your your audience or this community that's hopefully going to become your customers in some months? How did you kind of went through it, and what did you find in the process?
Yep. So one thing that I've learned is I don't want everyone to be interested. I want the right people to be interested, because this thing will only work if the people who are there are the right people who are there for the right reasons. And that's not everyone. Okay, a lot of people need this, but a lot of people aren't willing to actually do what it takes to do this well. So my strategy, to answer your question, is to try to be as honest and open and as real as possible. And what I found in doing that on LinkedIn, wherever I am, is that tends to draw, generally, not always, the right people to engage with me. So I don't make any phony claims to try to get as many people as possible. I don't offer some free garbage so everyone gives me their email address. I just try to signal, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, and if you want to join me, come on. And that's very important, because the quality of the experience for everyone will be almost entirely a function of the quality of the participants. I'll play some role in that. The curriculum will play a role, but if it's not the right people, it's not going to work. And I think the best way to find the right people is just to flash clearly, this is what it's all about. It's not something else. It's not fun. It's not pay and you get some credential that you can post on your LinkedIn. This is a place for the right people to come and be real and work on this really challenging problem of openly, comfortably, perhaps uncomfortably sometimes, but just actually being willing to share with other folks. So that's a long-winded way of saying my strategy is just try to be honest and straightforward as possible so that the right people come. And I think that will work. So I'm not shooting, just to be clear, I'm not trying to scale this thing. I don't want a million people or 100,000 people. I would rather have 10, 100, 500 people a year who are there for the right reason. And a lot of people aren't prepared for that.
Fair enough. You said you have some research that kind of drove you to start this. How do you find information about those potential users of customers of your solution? How do you go about that?
It's simple. It's very informal research. So one, I've been teaching at INSEAD for the past 14 years. For about the past 10 years of that, I've been doing a course, one specifically with EMBAs, who's sort of in your demographic domain. And a lot of this stuff that I'm going to do at the story school, I've been doing with them. And I've seen who they are. I've seen the ones for whom it clicks. I've seen the ones who aren't ready for it. And I've developed a kind of schema of who those folks are. That's one, is just, I've been doing it in the classroom with people who are very similar to my target. The other is people come to me. I get messages on LinkedIn, people comment on my stuff, and I can see who is interested. So it's very informal. I haven't sent out any survey because actually there's some stuff, right? This is not profound what I'm going to say. A lot of people know this. There's some stuff where, right, you don't send out a survey because in a lot of cases, people don't even know that they need this stuff. So what I haven't done is send out, hey, are you in a midlife crisis? What are you looking for?
Right.
The best way to do it, I think, is just to show some people, illustrate, this is what's going on. And the right people will just witness it, see it, and say, I want some of that. And the people who end up getting drawn to that, in my thesis, they're the right ones. So I'm not going to go on any kind of, unless I get desperate, and maybe I will, I'm not going to go on any campaign to try to persuade people that they need this. It's more just hang out a sign, this is what's happening here. And the wrong people will keep on driving and the right people will pull over, take a look. That's the plan. That's what I've been doing effectively for a while.
Right. And then, this decisions obviously are not easy many times. And in the past, we failed, moving away, taking away the Superman suit, if you will, and, clearing the BS. People have had setbacks and failures in the past. Can you share with us a big setback for you in the past, and how do you come back from it?
Yeah, I've had, I don't know, it seems like my life's been a series of setbacks. So just one that comes to mind. In 2016, May 2016, I woke up one morning. My wife was pregnant at the time. I woke up one morning on May 6th and said, okay, I'm going to be a dad. I need to change the way I'm doing things. And I decided I need to change the way I eat because I want to be able to play with my kid. I'm getting old, right? I was 44, so I need to change the way I eat. I need to get fit. I used to be fit at that time. On that day when I woke up in 2016, I wasn't so fit. I thought, okay, if I'm going to have this responsibility of bringing someone in the world, I need to be as healthy and as fit as possible. I need to change some things. So I started running. I started doing some things. And then on July 2nd or 3rd, I don't remember exactly, online, I saw something for civilians can sign up for something that simulates Navy SEAL Hell Week training. I thought, okay, if I do that, I have to train hard to do that. That'll give me a good goal that will force me to do what it is I need to do. I then spent a year training for that. Okay, I got where I could do 20 pull-ups, I could do all kinds of things. And I flew with my family from Singapore to San Diego to go through this 3 days. You don't sleep. They just run you around. It's all run by former SEALs. And it's not, of course, it's nothing like the actual Hell Week training for SEALs, but they try to take you close to that. So I did all this training, we booked an Airbnb in San Diego, nice place. I left my wife and daughter, I had a daughter by that time, and I went to the event. Okay, I took an Uber, had to take an hour Uber ride to the event. Supposed to last 3 days. Halfway through the first day, I rang the bell. Can't do it. Okay, I spent a year training for this, spent, I don't know, probably $15,000, $20,000 on the trip, Airbnb, flights, everything to go do this thing. Everyone around me knows that I'm going to do this thing, and I'm one of the first people to quit. Okay, now that's a bit humiliating. People say, oh, are you going to do that SEAL thing? Yeah, I'm going to do that SEAL thing. Come back, 3 weeks later. How'd that SEAL thing go? Oh, I quit on the first day. I was one of the first people to quit. Okay, that can be humiliating, or you can just accept it. Yeah, that's what happened. Now, why did it happen? For 2 reasons. One is I do not have what it takes to be a Navy SEAL. I'm convinced of that. I have no problem saying that. Another thing, I didn't train properly. What I did was I did what I like to do. So I was doing bench press and deadlift and the stuff I like to do when I was young. And I got strong in preparation for it. But what I wasn't doing is I wasn't out running 10, 20 miles a day or 100 miles a week. Why? Because I hate running. So I went, and halfway through the first day, my legs are barely working again. And we haven't even run that much, but we ran more than I'd run in the previous year. And I didn't train properly. So that is a failure. It could be humiliating, but the truth is I don't have what it takes to be a Navy SEAL. But the lesson in it is, look, train how you're going to fight. If you're not doing actually what you need to do, then very likely you're going to fail. And so I can tell you right now about what at the time felt humiliating. But I mean, do you guys think that I'm a loser because I went and halfway through the first day of this thing, I washed out? If you think that, I don't like you. I can't be friends with you. But if you hear it and you say, okay, he did that. It's kind of cool that he signed up for that, which is the reaction I would expect most people to have. Then, okay, we can be friends. We can talk. So I think, that's just one failure. And I have lots of failures, but that's one. That was a financially very expensive. At the time, it felt a bit humiliating. At the time, it felt very humiliating, actually. But in hindsight, what's the big deal, right? And that's what time does with most things. You realize, okay, that was rough, but actually when I talk about it, people don't judge me favorably. That my fears that I had about talking about this stuff was just a bunch of nonsense I cooked up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because everyone has failure. So if I tell you about my failure and you judge me, well, you can only do that probably if you're committed to being a hypocrite, because you probably have your own stuff. Whereas what decent people do, the people whose company is worth having, is they listen to you, they reflect on their own challenges that they've had, and then conversations take place. So everyone has these. We all have them. We think it's difficult to talk about them, but that's only because we have this bogus story cooked up about what the impact is going to be, what the consequences are going to be. And generally, I mean, unless you did something really, really dodgy, in which case you should probably be in prison, but generally for the kind of mistakes and failures that we're talking about, everyone has had them. And let me ask you this. Is it stronger to try to conceal that stuff, put it under the rug? Or does one project strength by owning it and talking about it? Say, I did this and I failed. It's if anything, it's the opposite of what people expect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's people are walking around with these false beliefs. If I just project this Superman, and the problem with projecting the Superman is, when people do it, you can smell it. Something ain't right. Okay, why is he trying so hard to impress me? And you can smell it.
Right.
And the reason why he's trying to do that is because he's not entirely secure with himself. Whereas when someone owns all of those mistakes, it's the opposite. They don't necessarily become Superman, but definitely the guy trying to be Superman, he looks weak. And we can all see that he's weak if we're honest, if we're paying attention. So what seems to be this projection of strength is actually just flashing red lights, in my opinion, and my assessment, for serious character weakness. Okay, so it's not difficult.
From what you were talking, I was thinking, we tend to talk a lot about resilience when you're building, your business or your career, etc. But the common factor that I'm seeing here is, in order to be resilient, you first have to develop the ability to accept yourself. So there's a lot of acceptance in the process, right? Because you first need to accept what has happened and process it, be comfortable with it, and then you're actually able to share it in the storytelling process. But I guess it's the same it's part of this process where you're developing this resilience to incorporate all of these experiences and beliefs into an internal story that actually helps you move forward instead of holds you back.
Yep, as you were saying that, it made me think, there's a very nice book. So this is a book that I came across around that same time where I was trying to turn things around, called The Untethered Soul. The Untethered Soul, like not tied down. The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And it's really about mindfulness. And in it, I think I'm remembering correctly that it came from that book. He talks about some people, they will have a thorn, something that gets stuck in there, mm-hmm. and it's painful. And what a lot of people will try to do is, stay away from me. Don't get close. I got this thorn right here, right? Because if they bump it, it's going to hurt. So, just stay back. And right when you think about it, that's a very foolish strategy. Just stay away. What's the right strategy? Right? Then you don't have to worry about anyone bumping into you. But a lot of people, it's sensitive. Stay back. And I think it's the same thing with these kind of failures, these stories, is that, how can someone be resilient, to put it in the framework that you just laid out? How can someone be resilient if they have all of this stuff? I can't be resilient if I'm trying to defend myself all the time. I don't want you to touch it. And I don't want you to see it, right? So now I got my hand tied behind my back because I don't want you to see this thing that I have, right? I got another one over here. How can you succeed? I'm extending the metaphor in a nonsensical way right now, but I kind of like it. If I got thorns all over me and I don't want anyone to touch me and I don't even want to see it, I'm not going to be resilient. I'm going to be weak. I'm going to be fragile. And what's the way of yanking the thorn out? to put it in the framework that you just laid out,
Yeah.
I think it's sharing that story. I think it amounts to that. I'm going to use that. So I like your question. You just gave me some material.
Good deal. Follow-up question. People mistake sometimes stories with a laundry list of accomplishments or things that you just did or embellish whatever happened in the past. So in your mind, what makes good ingredients of a story?
Yep. So yes. Yeah. What's your story? Oh, I studied electrical engineering at Penn, and then I went and worked at Goldman Sachs, and then I was recruited by McKinsey to work on their private equity. That's not a story, man, right? That's a list. And what makes up a story relative to that is you need two things for it to be a story worth listening to. You need causality, right? You need to see how one thing causes something else. And you need somehow meaning in there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if I just say like, okay, you did all of that stuff, but why did you do all that stuff? And what did it mean to you? Because if you tell me that you did all of that, I don't know, did you enjoy it? Did you hate your life the entire time throughout? Right? Is that the reason why you're on your third divorce right now? Because you did all of that? Because I heard that from someone else, but you just omitted that from your CV. Actually, what has been your lived experience? Right? And you don't see someone's lived experience on their CV. That's not their story. That's a list of ingredients. And the real meaning is, what's inside that can of beans. Not just the ingredients on the outside, but what did your life taste like? What did it smell like? What's the experience of it? And the story is embedded in that. And it's never in that list of credentials. It doesn't tell you anything about meaning.
Great.
Got it.
I was thinking a little bit about, what you mentioned earlier around the type of people that you're trying to attract, and kind of this midlife crisis, which certainly kind of resonated with me. And as we were talking, I was also thinking, that regardless of whether you're in the midlife crisis or not, this entire process actually helps you, build your leadership skills, right? So you're not only developing your storytelling, abilities and accept yourself and build this resilience and understand why you are doing these things, but it's also a very powerful tool when you're thinking about, leading either your own company or a corporation, etc. Have you thought about that angle of the kind of the storytelling process?
Yep. So just since this is, you guys are interested in business for this, so the business part of it. So what I was describing to you before was imagining the sort of B2C.
Mm-hmm.
The B2B angle is to go to companies and say, look, you have all of these people, they're managing people. The people they're managing, in most cases, don't really know anything about them, know where they worked before, know their title, but don't know anything about them. And so don't completely trust them. Don't feel completely comfortable with them. Don't really know them. And because of that, they're probably not willing to go to war for these people, right? They're probably not willing to put in all that it takes because that person is just their manager. But how do you take someone who's just a manager and make that person a leader who's worth following? I think it's, really know what stuff means to that person. The person is just saying, we're going to be innovative in the next quarter. We're going to, right. And they just do all of that. Who wants to, right? Who wants to go to war for that? Mm-hmm. And we've all seen people, right? I definitely know them who, anytime they get up and present and speak, it's this Superman, what I did. And you realize, man, I've been listening to you for 5 years and I don't know anything about you. Nothing. I know this BS persona that you've been projecting to everyone, but I don't know anything about you. And in fact, I've witnessed you enough times to know that you have insecurities, to know that you're trying incredibly hard to impress people because of it at every single turn. And I don't know anything about you. So do I trust you? Do I have faith in you? Do you have my absolute commitment? No, because you seem like a one-dimensional, flat, uninteresting, insecure robot, to mix metaphors and say nonsense. Whereas when you meet someone who is authentic and real and who's willing to be open with you, they indicate that you can be open with them, and actually you can form a relationship. So if leadership is just do what I say, then maybe you don't need that. But if leadership is, somehow we're going to navigate all this together and I'm going to go with you no matter what, well, the people for whom I'm willing to do that are the people I really respect and trust. And the people I really respect and trust, it never comes down to their title or their CV. It really comes down to how they present themselves. Do they do it authentically, truthfully, real? Can I trust them? Or are they this fake persona, right, with a fancy CV? And there are a lot of managers, there are a lot of so-called leaders who are just fake personas with impressive CVs. And that works at a dinner party, but if you're working for them, you can smell that something ain't right. And so, I think folks need, a lot of folks really, really need this. They need to come to grips with it. And then what they need, they also need a bit of help. I don't want to be too harsh on them. They need a space where they can learn, actually, if I tell my authentic story, actually my status just got elevated in this small group. Why the hell have I been doing this Superman bogus persona for so long? And so a lot of folks, there's not just this ego problem, but there's also an awareness, a knowledge problem, going back to what we were talking about earlier, that people just don't know that actually it's going to elevate their status if they're honest. So yes, I plan on doing that. That's a big part of what I plan on doing, actually.
Awesome. I know you're very passionate about music too, Neil. And can you share a band or a song that you're pondering at this moment?
If you can put up with jazz, a lot of people, what I'm going to tell them is a bit too far out, but everyone should listen to Dave Holland Quintet.
Okay.
Dave Holland's a bassist. He played with Miles Davis a bit, late Miles Davis, weirdo Miles Davis. Dave Holland Quintet, Metamorphose is the song.
Okay.
It's just a 17-minute, unbelievable jam. It's going to be too weird and too far out and too long for people who can't go that long without checking their Instagram. But if you like music, if you like real, legitimate music made by masters, Dave Holland Quintet, Metamorphose. Check it out.
No, they will check it out for sure. Our last question, Neil, would be, is there any fun fact that people don't know about you?
A fun fact that people don't know about me. There must be, I don't know. I'm pretty open, so I don't know. For about the past 20 years, I would say 95% of the nights when I went to sleep, I listened to a BBC Radio 4 show hosted by Melvin Bragg called In Our Time. Okay, so with my wife in the bed, I put a headphone like this. It used to be plugged into my phone. Now I have Bluetooth. Okay. And I listen to the show In Our Time. And I've done it really 95% of the nights for the past 20 years, maybe closer to 99% of the nights. And it's a show where you learn about history, philosophy. The most recent episode is on Marcus Aurelius, one of the three prominent Stoics. And they get three academics who sit down and have a nice conversation guided by Melvin Bragg for about 44 minutes. And some of those episodes, like the Permian-Triassic boundary, I probably listened to that episode 100 times. And most folks don't know that. I don't talk about that a lot, but check it out. In Our Time, BBC Radio 4, Melvin Bragg. Awesome. Amazing.
Amazing.
Excellent, Neil. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you here. Wish you all the best with the story school. And have a good rest of the day down in Singapore. pleasure to have you here.
Thank you guys. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Bye.